Hey guys, are you ready to transform your mind so you can transform your life? Coach Mirna brings you one-on-one coaching and expert guests weekly to help you to grow. Because happiness is the progressive realization of a worthy goal.
Looking for personal growth? Let's do it.
Have you ever found yourself constantly questioning your relationship? Maybe intrusive thoughts make you wonder, is he really over his ex? Or does he really love me? That cycle of doubt can be a form of relationship OCD, and it's more common than you think. No CD therapy specializes in treating OCD using exposure and response prevention, the gold standard treatment. Their licensed therapists understand OCD and can help you break free from the loop of intrusive thoughts. You can even do therapy online from home. If you're struggling with OCD or unrelenting intrusive thoughts, no CD can help. Book a free 15-minute call to get started. Head over to learn.nocd.com/transform. And remember, you can transform your mind. So what would prompt someone to pick up a phone call, pick up the phone? And is it because they're in trouble? What prompts somebody to come in to get treatment?
So sometimes someone will call and they say, I'm calling. My wife told me I need to call, or my partner told me to call.
Yeah, right,
They
right.
they've had an affair or multiple affairs, and there's just been discovery. And so they say, my wife said if I don't get treatment, I'm going to lose the marriage. So they may call. Other times we may have somebody who has lost a job because they were caught doing inappropriate sexual things on company time or having an affair with subordinate coworkers or something like that.
Mm.
Others will call and say, the FBI raided my house last night. I unfortunately have been doing child pornography, which we refer to as CSAM, or child sexual abuse material.
Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio podcast and television show. I'm your host, Life Coach Marina Young, and sitting in the guest chair today is Dr. Matthew Hedelius. He is the director of Paradise Creek Recovery Center. And Dr. Hedelius and I are going to be talking on the topic sexual addiction and recovery. So, this is the first time I have introduced this topic on the show, but it's a topic that I have always been very curious about. So, we will learn some things today about what it is and how you can recover from it. And, Dr. Hedelius is going to tell us about his program and his treatment center and expand our mind on this topic. So, welcome, Dr. Hedelius.
Thank you, Myrna. Very happy to be with you on your show.
Yes, welcome on the show. And like I said, my mind is going to be expanded by the end of our conversation, which is what I like. All right, so let me give you guys an introduction. Dr. Matthew Hedelius earned his Bachelor of Science degree in Family Sciences, a master's degree in Clinical Social Work, and a Doctor of Psychology degree. He has provided treatment for both men and women who are suffering from trauma and problematic sexual behaviors for over 26 years. He utilizes principles of neuroscience and interpersonal neurobiology to help individuals achieve healing they are capable of. He has specialized training in eye movement desensitization and reprocessing and is a certified sex addiction therapist. All right. Awesome. All right. So as we dive in, my first question is many people think sexual addiction is just a behavior problem. But in this show, we often talk about how transformation starts in the mind. From your experience, how does the mind or thoughts, beliefs, and emotional patterns play a role in the development of sexual addiction?
Very good question. Well, at the most basic level, the person a person will never do anything that is not thought about first. So whether it's we're going to the store, whether we're going to eat, there's always a thought that precedes that behavior. Sometimes those thoughts are conscious, and sometimes the thought processes are unconscious. And so with problematic sexual behavior, we often see some of both. And at a basic level, many people hearing about sex addiction or problematic sexual behavior think it's all about arousal. So I want to see more bodies or have more sex or more sexual partners. And although that is a factor in many cases and might be a factor in a lot of cases, it's by far from the primary factors. Most of problematic sexual behavior finds its roots in attachment ruptures. And if we talk about attachment is that glue that holds us together in relationships. And our initial attachments are primarily formed early in life with our caregivers and other experiences that we have. And basically, if we have a need and that need is met by the caregiver and is met consistently and with warmth, we feel felt, seen, and heard, then we're going to develop a secure attachment style. If there are problems, so for example, let's say a caregiver, a father or a mother, maybe has some mental illness or other things that make it difficult for them to show up on a consistent basis, the child begins to develop a more insecure attachment style. And as they get older, they desire connection, but they don't know how to do it. And they often fear intimacy, but desire connection. And we know that through attachment development, it's really a neurobiological process. So not just in the brain or the psychology, it's the whole body. So we talk about feeling felt or feeling attuned with somebody, that's secure attachment. So problematic sexual behaviors will often be a result of someone trying to meet those neurobiological needs to be connected through attachment or through sexual behaviors. So whether that's having an affair, whether that's going to a strip club or engaging in chronic problematic pornography use, anything of that nature, it's trying to assuage those needs and gain some type of connection, even though it really is a pseudo sense of connection.
Wow. Wow. Huh. Well, 99.9% of the things I talk about here on this show could always be traced back to um, childhood trauma or, how our parents or caregivers um, showed up. And I never thought that sexual addiction was one of those things. So if I were to understand what you're saying, is that you're saying that somebody wants to be touched, someone wants to be felt, maybe because that's what sex is, right? It's touching, or they are just wanting release, sexual release. I don't get it. I don't understand why sex would be their form of connection.
So yeah, it's and because they could be some of all of those things. So as we look at basic neurobiological needs, we need to be seen, we need to be heard, we need to be felt physically and emotionally. We need to be able to be soothed by someone, and we need to have safety in relationships. So those 5 things are the primary dynamics. And if you watch a little baby, in fact, one of my daughters or 2 of my daughters just recently had new babies in December. And as I see those little babies, 2 months old now, talking to their mothers and their fathers, these little babies, they mirror the patterns of their mother's faces. And they get so excited, so overwhelmed that it's almost more than they can handle. and they're just overwhelmed. And I love watching that because I love them, but I also love watching that because I know what's going on inside the baby's minds. These neurons are just firing, and their attachment circuitries are developing. So that's a need that all of us have. But let's say that we have a baby that doesn't get that, and a mother and a father that are on drugs or just not available. That baby has nowhere to reach out, and they want touch. Neurobiologically, they need touch, but it's not being administered the way it needs to. And so if a child or a baby gets it sometimes, then that child will grow up to be really needy and really clingy, and anyone that shows attention to them, they'll go after them. So if someone shows attention to me, I'm in bed with them tonight and someone else tomorrow. If someone, however, has some inconsistency, where sometimes the caregiver is there and sometimes they're not there, the person grows up and becomes an adult and still wants that connection, but they're afraid of being hurt. So they'll stay way back in what we call a fearful avoidance state until they really know it's safe. As opposed to someone who is secure, they're able to self-regulate themselves. They want to be in a relationship, but they're not falling apart if they're not in one. And when things are healthy, then they can connect and have a healthy sexual relationship. So our model basically is that all problematic sexual behaviors are for the sole purpose, or the primary purpose, of trying to medicate some type of attachment rupture. And so sometimes people will come to treatment, well, just give me the 5 steps to stop having an affair and the 4 steps to not doing pornography. And I say, well, there really aren't any steps other than it's about establishing secure attachments within yourself and with others and repairing those attachment wounds.
Wow. Wow. Now I'm going to throw something out here. Because I was in the foster care system. I mean, not me. I was a foster mom, and I adopted 3 children from foster care. And 90% of the kids in foster care have attachment disorders. So what is the percentage of, I mean, it's a strange question. What is the percentage of kids that have attachment disorders based on being taken from their parents or never had any kind of, the reason that they were taken from their parents is because they weren't getting any attention, and then they go to the foster care system where it's worse because they're not getting that love. What is the percentage of that happening? Well, what's the percentage of kids you see in your center that started in that area?
So to qualify, we only see adults, and so we 18 and over.
I know, but what they started as, yeah, right.
Yeah, but I would say we haven't done research on our own people because that's not ethical. You have to be a third party really to do that. But as I just looked through anecdotally, I think we could say almost 100% have had some type of attachment ruptures. Not always through a foster care or an adoption system, but with that, I would say probably 5 to 10% of our men that come through have either been in foster care or been through an adoption. But others, again, have had significant attachment ruptures that mirror some of those things you'd experience in the foster care system.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Like I said, the first time I've made that kind of connection. Wow. It's interesting. Yeah. Thank you for, I just threw that out there because it came up in my mind as you were speaking. So let's talk about the shame. I remember Halle Berry, which is a very famous actress. One of her first husbands, she's had 4. One of her husbands, she said that the reason that the marriage dissolved was because of sexual addiction, and we always think that sexual addiction is, yeah, a man that can't not stop having sex. I mean, whether he's married or whatever, it's like you start out by saying they're constantly thinking about it, and they're thinking about it, like going to the store or whatever, it's on their mind. So once someone is identified that they have this problem, they probably feel intense shame or fear about reaching out for help, right? So what do you say to someone who's struggling with sexual addiction but feels hesitant to take the first step towards treatment?
So yeah, it is really that shame, and they tend to be quite isolated in their world, and they think, well, no one else thinks like me, no one else feels like me, no one else would have these problems. And uh, quite frankly, when we hear about something on the radio or on the news, the media generally paints it inaccurately, and we have you know your inappropriate representations of what that person may look like. So the ironic thing, however, is once they get into treatment, once they make that phone call and they come in and they sit down in our clinic and our treatment center, they realize that these other men are just like them. They look like them. They act like them. They're physicians, they're attorneys, they're school teachers, they're professionals, blue collar workers, you name it. They're just like them. And simply being in an environment where they can talk about the real dark stuff that has permeated their lives, they start to get better. And we certainly provide specific interventions, but just them being with people who understand is a huge piece in healing and getting better.
So what would prompt someone to pick up a phone call, pick up the phone? And is it because they're in trouble? What prompts somebody to come in to get treatment?
So sometimes someone will call and they say, I'm calling, my wife told me I need to call, or my partner told me I
Okay.
need to call.
Yeah, right,
They
right.
they've had an affair or multiple affairs, and there's just been discovery. And so they say, my wife said, if I don't get treatment, I'm going to lose the marriage. So they may call. Other times we may have somebody who has lost a job because they were caught doing inappropriate sexual things on company time or having an affair with subordinate coworkers or something like that.
Mm,
Others will call and say, the FBI raided my house last night. I unfortunately have been doing child pornography, which we refer to as CSAM, or child sexual abuse material. Oftentimes that's the case. And so people come in from many, many different situations. And then sometimes we just have people call in and say, you know what, I've been doing this for way too long. It's controlling my life. My partner knows, but I need to get it taken care of. So there are many, many different reasons why people would call, but that first phone call is generally the most difficult.
yeah.
And they fly into the airport, and we pick them up and bring them in. And from the airport to the center, they're very, very anxious, asking a lot of questions, and generally within 30 minutes, their nervous systems have calmed, blood pressure's gone down, and they're able to settle into treatment.
Right. Okay. Well, that's good. That's good. I mean, because I know that yeah, it's I mean, there's all these different addictions, and some of them can kill you, and so you've
Yep.
got to get off of it. And this one is one of the ones, it's behavior, right? And pleasurable behavior too. So I would assume that the first one that you said was is probably the most where, they're going to lose their wife and their children, and they decided to get treatment for it. I
Sure.
mean, I have a question that I want to ask here, but I'll keep that for later. All right.
And
So,
maybe if I could just add one thing there,
mm,
we tell people that if you don't get this under control, this sex addiction can and may kill. And suicide rates go up significantly with people who have severe problematic sexual behaviors. And sometimes we see in people's lives that did not get it taken care of quickly enough that unfortunately it did end in death by suicide. And so it really can be a matter of life and death.
Life and death. Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you for plugging that. Right. Yes. 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 Right. I kept getting headaches at home. Turns out my indoor air was the culprit. My husband suggested we get an air purifier, and after we set up Ear Doctor in my bedroom, my headaches went away, my allergy symptoms were reduced, which allowed me to sleep better. This was due to Ear Doctor's powerful 3-stage filtration system. It captures extremely small particles, about 100 times smaller than what typical air purifiers can remove, including airborne contaminants you don't want to be breathing in, like dust, pollen, mold spores, pet dander, and other odors. Ear Doctor's whisper quiet operation allows you to sleep undisturbed by noise. It has an auto mode feature for optimal air quality 24/7. And I love the change filter reminders, so no more guesswork. 98% of Ear Doctor's customers say their home air feels cleaner, safer, and healthier. Ear Doctor was also voted Best Air Purifier in the Green Matters Approved Awards. So if you want to breathe better, head over to eardoctorpro.com and use promo code TRANSFORM to get up to $300 off today. Ear Doctor comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee, plus a 3-year warranty, and $84 value free. Get this exclusive podcast-only offer now at eardoctorpro.com. That is eardoctorpro.com and use promo code TRANSFORM. Many people think OCD is just about hand washing or checking locks, but OCD can show up in our relationships. If you are constantly questioning whether you truly love your partner or they truly love you, or if you feel stuck in a loop of doubt, reassurance seeking, and overthinking, you may be experiencing relationship OCD, and you're not alone. A lot of people might think that feeling is being caused by anxiety, but sometimes it can actually be due to OCD. And if that surprises you, it's because OCD is wildly misunderstood. That's where no CD therapy comes in. No CD provides specialized treatment for OCD using exposure and response prevention therapy, the gold standard treatment for OCD. With no CD, you can work with a licensed therapist who understands OCD and how it affects your thoughts, your emotions, and yes, even your relationships. Therapy is done online, so you can connect with a therapist who specializes in OCD from the comfort of your home. If you're struggling with OCD or unrelenting intrusive thoughts, no CD can help. Book a free 15-minute call to get started. Head to learn.nocd.com/transform. And remember, Transformers Tribe, your thoughts don't control you. You can transform your mind. That website again is learn.nocd.com/transform. Okay, now, your program emphasizes treating the whole person, mind, body, and spirit. Can you explain how therapies like mindfulness, adventure therapy, and experiential work support long-term recovery?
Yeah, so a lot of what we want to do in order to make successful treatment is we want to have a whole approach where we're able to regulate and slow down the nervous system. So we're not just working with the brain, we're working with the entire nervous system. So every day begins with mindfulness practice. We start at 8:45 a.m. and we begin with the mindfulness practice Sunday through Saturday. And different mindfulness practice every day. And there's great research that shows that effective and long-term mindfulness practice can strengthen the cingulate cortex along the brain, which is responsible for uh, uh, regulating emotion and stress. It can soften and shrink the size of the amygdala, which is the fear response. It can restore the hippocampus back to normal functioning, which helps us with memory. So that's one reason we do that every single day. We also have yoga at least twice a week, where we have a yoga instructor come in, a certified yoga instructor, and help them begin to connect their mind with their body. We do a sound bath regularly, where they simply listen to sounds from sound bowls, and the vibrations help to soothe and calm the nervous system. Every Friday, weather permitting, sometimes the weather's an issue, but generally every Friday we go on a nature hike. We're not hiking high mountains or cliffs, but just out in nature, out in the country. We have the facility in a place that's very isolated from society, so it's very beautiful, and just simply getting out and breathing fresh air is part of that. And then some of the other techniques we do as far as regular breathing exercises, some biofeedback work, those are all mindfulness type practices that help to facilitate treating the whole person.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I can understand the nervous system regulation, because you're right. They're probably all in fight and flight and y- yeah, but so for someone that's listening, explain, because when I think of mindfulness, I think of me concentrating on breath work. What other kind of mindfulness helps to, you know, uh, um, uh, calm the amygdala and all the things that you just talked about? Because that's really good, right?
Yeah, so breath work is a part of it. We'll do a lot of exercises specifically focus on developing healthy affirmation and healthy narratives. And so we'll have patients write their own narratives that we need to work on with them, and we'll focus on them in terms of mindfulness practice. Focusing on different parts of the body and just bringing attention to it and having it be aware. And we really try and map out the connection between cues in the environment that trigger the different parts of our nervous system, whether it be the sympathetic, the dorsal, the ventral state of the nervous system. And this is crucial because if someone says something to me that leads me to feel like a failure, and let's say that I get into a dorsal state of my nervous system where I shut down and I dissociate and I disconnect. In order to get out of that, I may have developed the practice of seeking out a sex worker to help me feel better and get back to normal. And so we like to have them map out the connection between the environmental cues and what it does to them in their nervous system so we can intervene and help them go a different way rather than the unhealthy way, which has ultimately led them into the addiction further and into treatment.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. That is good. Good explanation. Right, right. Okay. Awesome. All right. Now, for listeners who are wondering whether recovery is truly possible, especially those dealing with legal issues or long-term compulsive behaviors, what hope-filled message would you want them to leave this conversation with? So that was the question that popped into my mind earlier when you talked about um someone making the call, someone coming to the airport, how they're very nervous about what's happening. Yeah, so what is the success rate that yeah, how is it possible? What's the success rate? Last week, I was one of the media personalities on a publicity summit. In this summit, I had to interview 51 authors who wanted to be a guest on my show. It was a 4-hour-long event, and usually after but 2 hours in, I begin to fade. This time, I added a scoop of spark to my water and sipped it throughout the summit and had no fade. I was as energized at the beginning as I was at the end. Not only did spark give me energy, I was able to focus and give all 51 attendees my full focus and attention. Let Spark Energy Plus Focus be your go to drink for pre workout rituals or when you just need reliable energy to power through life. Mix it, sip it, and get dialed in and ready to go. With 0 grams of sugar and essential vitamins and amino acids for mental focus, Spark supports reliable, sustained energy and focus without that jittery spike and crash feeling. Make it your go-to pick-me-up for the 2 p.m. slump, or swap coffee for Spark to start the day strong. Spark has 120 milligrams of caffeine. Amino acids and taurine help balance the caffeine without jitters or crashes. Choline helps support performance, mental focus, and clarity. It is trusted by millions with thousands of 5-star reviews. If you are ready to add spark to your life, Spark Energy Plus Focus is offering 30% off and free shipping. Go to drinkspark.com and use code TRANSFORM at checkout. That's code TRANSFORM at DRINKSPARK.com.
Sure. So great question. I'll try and answer all of those. So when people come into treatment, we want to begin by practicing sound attachment skills. So we want to see them, we want to hear them, we want them to feel felt. And so they're often very anxious, especially those who have come in with legal problems. And so without minimizing, we often say that this situation you're in, it's not a death sentence, nor is it a life sentence, but it's a chapter that you're in right now that's being written. There are several chapters been written in the past, but we also have several chapters going forward. And sometimes those chapters may include probation. Sometimes it may include a period of incarceration. Sometimes it may include a professional losing his professional license to practice a chosen profession, loss of a partnership or a marriage or a business. And we want to make sure that they realize that we know all those things are very, very real. The losses are real. But there are going to be additional chapters, and they get to be the author even more so than in the past of what those chapters are like. And so we give them the skills. We let them know that treatment is going to need to go on in recovery far beyond the 6 weeks that you're at Paradise Creek Recovery Center. It's going to go on much longer than that, and we'll help you get set up with a therapist in your area if you don't have one. But the ongoing recovery work is what will help them maintain that stability. And I recently heard a gentleman speaking about aging, and he was talking about people who he knew at 60, they're retired, and then 65 and 70 and 75, and how they felt that life was just over. And then finally got to about 83 and realized, you know what? My life wasn't over 55. And I've sat here in my rocking chair thinking it was over, and I still feel like I'm 18, but I'm not doing anything about it. And he said this, he said, when he gives talks to these people, he says, you're not out of time. You haven't run out of time. You simply run out of excuses. And if we can realize that, yeah, I've not run out of time, I've just run out of excuses. So I can't use my attachment ruptures anymore as an excuse. I can't use the lack of sex. I can't use the financial problems. All those things are factors, but I alone am responsible for getting myself better. And when we can empower someone that way, then they can start to write those chapters, and even to the point where they can look back at a period of incarceration as a meaningful part of their recovery.
Okay. So one of the other ways from that, what you just said, is the court sometimes mandates them to come to your system if they have a legal problem.
Uh, no, so
No?
nobody is court ordered to our
Oh,
facility.
okay.
Um,
Okay.
Oftentimes they may be in the process of having legal problems, so they choose to come on their own.
Okay.
But and they just know that they may likely have some or possibly have some legal consequences following, but no one is court ordered. So
Okay, right.
oh,
Because I know, like sometimes the court says, well, you got to have anger management training, or you have to, you know, if you have a DUI, they might the court order you to go get, training, not training, treatment. But
treatment, yeah.
okay, so nobody is court ordered. Okay, so so you just mentioned that your program is 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that they have to do after they leave your program. So walk us through your program that's for 6 weeks. I know that in your bio you mentioned things like eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So walk us through what they get when they come to your center.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll start from the very beginning. So patients, we're located in Idaho, but we rarely treat people from Idaho or this area. Most of them come from all over the country and Canada and out and even beyond that. So they generally fly into Salt Lake City International Airport. We make arrangements for their pickup there on a shuttle, and then our personal shuttle picks them up after about an hour ride from there into the center. And we generally do admissions on Sunday evening or Sunday afternoon, although we can do emergency admissions any day of the week. Monday is when we really get down to it. They see me for their clinical intake, and I explain the treatment program to them, and they begin having individual therapy sessions that day. And so on a weekly basis, they will generally have at least 2 individual therapy sessions and 1 to 2 groups per day. Sometimes there may be 3 groups per day. On top of that, there will be music therapy. There'll be regular 12-step meetings and uh, activity groups in the evening. We have groups on Saturdays and peer-led groups on Sundays. And so they're getting a lot of treatment during that time frame. When they leave our program after 6 weeks, they will have received just about the equivalent of 12 to 18 months of outpatient psychotherapy. So we're getting a lot of good work.
Okay.
And then before they, as part of that, if they do belong to a coupleship, they have a spouse or a partner, we're able to do some sessions where we invite their partner into the session through Zoom. Sometimes people want to do a question and answer disclosure, which we can do, and we can do some other couple sessions with them. We also invite partners and family members out if they want to participate to our outpatient office. It's not in the treatment center where their husband or spouse is, but it's in an outpatient office about 90 miles away, where we can do more work with them on betrayal trauma and helping them better understand where their loved one is at addiction-wise, and then send them back home for further outpatient therapy.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's great. Yes. That's yeah, I like that. You said that for the 6 weeks it's like 18 months of outpatient therapy. So you condense it. Um so what is the success rate of your program? Do you find that there's a percentage of people that rescind or they continue to do the work? Because a lot of these addictions you relapse because it's stress or something triggers you and then you go back. So
Yeah. So certainly we have everybody define for themselves upon coming in what sobriety will look like and mean for them. And we also emphasize that sobriety does not mean perfection. It means honesty. It means upward trajectory. And so with that being said, we follow the people once they come to us, we follow them for a year. So whether through phone calls or emails, we're following up with them. We have a weekly aftercare group that they're able to participate in. It's telephonic, but they're able to participate in free of charge for as long as they want. 1 decade, 2 decades, so on and so forth. We also have an alumni conference that we hold every April and every October, where people, only those who've been to the program, are able to come back and go to that conference. So we really try and provide good follow-up support that way. We also make sure that they're set up with the therapist upon going home. So they have an appointment in hand, where the groups are, where the 12-step meetings are, individual therapy. And as long as people do that, they do very, very well. Where we sometimes have problems is if they get away from their aftercare plan and stop doing those things. And so what we tell people is, if you stop taking the medicine, there really is no guarantee. But if you're taking the medicine, which is therapy and mindfulness and 12-step work, then you have a very high likelihood of continuing on in your sobriety. And so what those exact numbers are, we don't know. We, again, being the director of the program, we can't do direct research on those individuals. It has to be a third party. But we continue to hear back from so many of our folks that have been through, and I would say things are very successful for those who are doing the work and continuing to stay on the program.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, if you do the work, it's the same thing as in a marriage. If you do the work, it will work. If you don't do the work, then it's not going to work. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and you have to be motivated to do the work, right? The motivation is the same reason that they picked up the phone and called you in the first place, right? And so that's the motivation. They want to get better. Um, so one of the things I love about this conversation is that, it would help people to make the call. Maybe a wife is listening and she wants to, make the call for her husband, or a parent, because parents know these things too. They know the behavior of their children. Make the call, and you're encouraging the person that knows they have a problem to make the call, right? Because it doesn't seem to be all that difficult work. you know, you just have to be motivated to want to get better. So,
Right.
one of the things I want to ask you as well is, how do you rebuild the connection how do you help your clients, I should say, rebuild healthy connections? Is that something that you guys do? Because you know that that's what the rupture was. So,
Yeah. So we do a lot of psychoeducation on attachment dynamics, on attachment ruptures, down to the neurobiological state, so they know what it looks like in and outside of the body. And then we say, you need a core group of individuals in your life. And most of us have room for about 3 to 5 core individuals. Those individuals are those who know everything about us. They're people we could call at any time of night, any time of day, for any reason. They're going to show up for us. And so we encourage people to identify who these people are and then make invitations to invite them into that inner circle of their life while they're in treatment. Now, for most of us, it takes a lifetime sometimes to establish those 3 or 5 people in there. But as we educate them on that, and then we invite them to begin to establish those relationships, we help them realize, okay, now this is like money in the bank. It takes investment, and you have to make regular deposits in this relationship in order for it to grow interest and to be there for you when you really need it. But on top of that, coming into therapy and into treatment, they felt so good about being with people, they realized the power of it. And so oftentimes they'll trade phone numbers, and so when a group goes home, they're texting back and forth, and they're calling back and forth, and they realize that in addition to all the other stuff they've got, just those relationships are crucial for their long-term recovery.
I like it. I like it. Yes. I just listened to this show on Netflix. It was called Famous Last Words. There's a gentleman that just died um a couple weeks ago. And his famous last words were leaving, you know, life life lessons to his daughters. And I was very surprised that he put friendships as one of the most predominant things in life, because he says if you have good friends, then they'll come when you need them. Because that's what happened to him. He was dying and his friends came to him and he realized that it's very important. And I think I was hearing something the other day that the quality of our lives, it's dependent on our relationships.
Yeah.
Uh, and if you've got these three people or even two that you can call, you can count on, and that you build this core thing, it is life-saving, and it's a beautiful thing. So I'm glad that we're kind of ending with that people need people. And yeah, maybe when they were younger, they didn't get that connection. And in fact, this person that was talking said that he never really connected with people. He always felt like an outsider. He always felt that he was never enough, even though he was a major star, right? And I should tell people who I'm talking about. I'm talking about Eric Dane. He just died from ALS recently, and at 52. So he was always been very successful, a movie star, but he couldn't connect with people. So he formed some friendships, and the friendships, were there for him in the end. But he, as he's giving life lessons, he's telling you that connection, friendships is one of the most important things that he wanted his daughters to have. And so, yeah, I mean, I know that the quality of my life is so important, is so much better because I have, core people. And I know that myself, right? So it's a beautiful thing. All right. So tell our listeners how they can get in contact with you, your facility, your website, if you're on social media, um, how they can get more information if they need to.
Sure. Yes. So a few different ways you're able to go to our website itself. It's paradisecreekrecovery.com. One more time, it's paradisecreekrecovery.com. You can call our main number. It's toll free 855-442-1912. You can also find me personally, Dr. Matthew Hedelius, on Instagram. And you can find Paradise Creek Recovery Center also on Instagram. And we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're just about everywhere. But Instagram tends to be the most popular place for us right now in social media. The process generally is like this. You call the main number. Our front desk person takes the call, answers some initial questions, takes some demographic information, and then they give that information to our program manager, Jacob Stacy, who will then call you back shortly and answer any more additional questions to you and facilitate admission if that's what you desire.
Okay. That's awesome. Thank you. Now, I will have all this information in our show notes, and I'll link out to your website and also link out to your social media page, because a lot of people like that. And as well, you'd probably post some information about sexual addiction on there, right? I'm almost sure, right? So
Yeah.
they can they can maybe they might need some encouragement before they pick up the phone. Right. And so that's amazing. So thank you for being on the show. Thank you for explaining that is nothing to feel ashamed of. You were responding to a broken connection, which was not your fault, from childhood. And again, a lot of people from that broken connection as a child, they have this thing that's called inability to connect. I forgot the name of it. But I've seen it in, like I said, in the foster care system. And I've seen it with a lot of, people that I know personally that have a difficult childhood. So, I love expanding, my listeners' minds and changing their mindset about how they look at things, because that's what we're all doing. We're reprogramming our mindset. So, I love this conversation. So, if today's episode resonated with you, I want you to remember this: struggles do not define you. Many times, the behaviors we're trying to change are connected to wounds, experiences, and patterns that were formed in the mind before we understood them. But the good news is this: when you begin to heal the mind, you begin to transform your life. So, speaking directly to my Transformers tribe, which is what I call you guys now, um, thank you for continuing to show up, to grow, and do the inner work. Remember, transformation starts in the mind, but it shows up in every area of our lives. So, Dr. Hedelius, thank you for being on the show. As we wrap up, any last words that you want to leave to the listening audience?
Just thank you very much for joining. And I echo what Myrna says, that it's never too late. And it's just about going forward one step at a time. And really, any problem that we have, we can overcome as we put forth a consistent effort. So thank you for your words.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I like that. Yeah. Any problem. You just got to do the work. Byron Katie wrote this beautiful book called The Work, because you got to do the work. For every single thing, you got to do the work. And if you do the work, you will get the reward. And so thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, Dr. Hedelius. Until next time, namaste.
Namaste. Thank you.